easy to label a president as the best or the worst, but true greatness is measured by a lifetime of impact before, during, and after their time in office. In this video, we'll explore the presidents whose actions shaped not just the United States but the world. We'll look at their foundational leadership, humanitarian efforts, and bold moves that redefined global security. From the earliest days of the Republic to the modern era, these leaders didn't just manage crises, they changed the course of history. Let's begin our journey through the legacies of America's most consequential presidents. George Washington's influence extends far beyond his presidency. As commander-in-chief, he led the colonies to victory in the Revolutionary War, securing independence from Britain. He presided over the Constitutional Convention, helping to lay the world's first modern democratic foundation. Washington also set the two-term precedent, ensuring the presidency would never become a monarchy. His leadership established the principles of peaceful power transfer and civic duty, inspiring democratic revolutions across the globe. Washington's vision and restraint made him not just the father of his country but a model for leaders everywhere. Franklin D. Roosevelt steered the United States through two of its greatest challenges, the Great Depression and World War II. His New Deal programs provided economic security for millions, reshaping the American social contract. As a wartime leader, Roosevelt transformed the U.S. into the arsenal of democracy, supplying the Allies and leading the fight against fascism. He also laid the groundwork for the United Nations, envisioning a world where peace could be maintained through collective security. Roosevelt's leadership not only saved the nation but helped shape the post-war global order. Abraham Lincoln's presidency was defined by the Civil War and the fight to preserve the Union, but his greatest legacy is the Emancipation Proclamation, which ended slavery and redefined the moral identity of the United States. Lincoln's leadership during the nation's darkest hour not only saved the Union but set a global standard for human rights. His vision of a nation conceived in liberty continues to inspire movements for freedom and equality around the world. Lincoln's courage and conviction changed the course of history, making him a symbol of justice and unity. Theodore Roosevelt was a force of nature, literally and figuratively. As president, he created the national park system, preserving millions of acres for future generations. Internationally, he won the Nobel Peace Prize for mediating the Russo-Japanese War, showing that American leadership could foster global stability. Roosevelt also oversaw the construction of the Panama Canal, connecting oceans and economies. His big stick diplomacy projected American power while promoting peace. Roosevelt's legacy is one of bold action, environmental stewardship, and a belief that the U.S. could be a force for good in the world. Dwight D. Eisenhower's lifetime achievements span both military and civilian spheres. As Supreme Allied Commander, he orchestrated the defeat of Nazi Germany, liberating Europe from tyranny. As President, he built the interstate highway system, transforming American infrastructure. Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program promoted the peaceful use of nuclear energy, and his doctrine aimed to prevent the spread of communism without triggering a third world war. His steady leadership helped maintain global stability during the tense early years of the Cold War. Thomas Jefferson's influence began before his presidency, as the principal author of the Declaration of Independence. As president, he executed the Louisiana Purchase, doubling the size of the United States and setting the stage for its rise as a global power. Jefferson's vision of a nation built on liberty and opportunity shaped America's identity and its role in the world. His commitment to education, science, and exploration continues to inspire innovation and progress. Harry S. Truman made some of the toughest decisions in history. He ended World War II, authorized the use of atomic weapons, and then turned to rebuilding a shattered world. The Marshall Plan under his leadership helped Europe recover and resist the spread of communism. Truman's doctrine of containment defined U.S. foreign policy for decades, and his creation of NATO established a security alliance that still protects the West. Truman's legacy is one of decisive action and a commitment to global stability. Jimmy Carter's presidency faced many challenges, but his post-presidential life has been legendary for humanitarian work. He won the Nobel Peace Prize for mediating the Camp David Accords, bringing peace between Israel and Egypt. Carter has dedicated decades to eradicating diseases, monitoring elections, and promoting human rights around the world. His commitment to service and compassion has made a lasting difference for millions, proving that a president's impact can extend far beyond the White House. George H.W. Bush's career was defined by public service. As a WWII pilot, UN ambassador, CIA director, and president, he navigated the end of the Cold War with skillful diplomacy. Bush led a global coalition to liberate Kuwait during the Gulf War, proving that the world could unite against aggression. His steady hand helped manage a peaceful transition as the Soviet Union collapsed, reshaping the global order for a new era. Woodrow Wilson's presidency was marked by sweeping domestic reforms and a bold vision for international peace. He established the Federal Reserve and the Federal Trade Commission, modernizing the U.S. economy. Wilson's 14 points in his push for the League of Nations earned him the Nobel Peace Prize and set the stage for future global cooperation. Though the League ultimately failed, his ideas influenced the creation of the United Nations and the concept of collective security. When we shift our focus from domestic policy to global impact, a different set of presidential achievements comes into view. These leaders didn't just manage the status quo, they confronted existential threats and reshaped the world order. Their actions, whether on the battlefield or at the negotiating table, set new standards for international security and humanitarian intervention. Let's examine the presidents who took bold steps to defeat evildoers and protect the helpless on a global scale. Dwight D. Eisenhower's defining achievement was not just a policy, but but the military destruction of Nazi Germany as supreme Allied commander. His leadership in World War II liberated millions and ended the Holocaust, changing the course of history. As president, Eisenhower worked to prevent a nuclear Third World War, launching the Eisenhower Doctrine to contain aggression and promote peace. His legacy is one of courage, strategy, and a commitment to global security. Franklin D. Roosevelt transformed the United States into the arsenal of democracy, providing the economic and military might needed to stop the Axis powers. His vision for the United Nations aimed to prevent future global conflicts by fostering cooperation among nations. Roosevelt's leadership during World War II not only saved millions, but also laid the groundwork for a more peaceful and interconnected world. Ronald Reagan's presidency was defined by his determination to end the Cold War and dismantle the evil empire of the Soviet Union. Through the Strategic Defense Initiative and strong support for anti-communist movements, Reagan applied economic and moral pressure that contributed to the collapse of Soviet communism. His famous call to tear down this wall symbolized the liberation of Eastern Europe and the triumph of freedom over oppression. Harry S. Truman's legacy includes the creation of NATO, a security alliance that has protected the Western world for over 75 years. After making the difficult decision to end World War II, Truman focused on rebuilding Europe and containing the spread of communism. The Berlin Airlift, one of the greatest humanitarian feats in history, demonstrated America's commitment to defending freedom without resorting to war. Truman's actions set the stage for decades of peace and stability. George H. W. Bush's leadership during the end of the Cold War and the Gulf War showcased his ability to build global coalitions. He managed the peaceful collapse of the Soviet Union and led a 35-nation alliance to liberate Kuwait from aggression. Bush's diplomatic skills and commitment to international cooperation helped maintain stability during a time of dramatic change. Theodore Roosevelt was the first president to project American power globally to maintain balance and prevent European imperialism in the Western Hemisphere. His big stick, diplomacy and mediation of the Russo-Japanese War earned him a Nobel Peace Prize. Roosevelt's actions established the U.S. as a key player in international affairs and set a precedent for future presidents to engage in global diplomacy. Herbert Hoover is often remembered for the Great Depression, but his lifetime achievements include saving hundreds of millions from starvation in Europe and Russia during and after both World Wars. Through the American Relief Administration, Hoover's efforts prevented chaos and violence, demonstrating the power of humanitarian intervention. His work set a standard for future global relief efforts. Ulysses S. Grant's presidency was marked by the total military defeat of the Confederacy, ending a system of human enslavement that was a global moral blight. As president, he used the Enforcement Acts to crush the first iteration of the Ku Klux Klan, protecting the rights of newly freed citizens. Grant's actions reinforced the principles of justice and equality, influencing civil rights movements for generations. James Monroe established the Monroe Doctrine, drawing a political line that forbade European powers from recolonizing the Americas. This doctrine protected dozens of emerging democracies and asserted the United States' role as a defender of freedom in the Western Hemisphere. Monroe's vision helped shape the global balance of power and ensured the survival of new nations. Presidential greatness is often debated, with some arguing that only those who proactively confront global threats deserve recognition. By focusing on leaders who disrupted the status quo and confronted evil directly, we gain a new perspective on what it means to make the world safer. This approach highlights the importance of bold action and the willingness to challenge long-standing threats to peace and security. Donald Trump's presidency is often defined by his peace through strength doctrine, which prioritized direct negotiation and economic pressure over traditional military intervention. Supporters argue that Trump broke from the war party consensus, focusing on results rather than endless conflict. His approach to foreign policy emphasized American interests while seeking to make the world safer through unconventional means. One of Trump's most significant achievements was the defeat of the ISIS territorial caliphate in Iraq and Syria. By shifting the rules of engagement, he allowed the military to aggressively dismantle a regime that had terrorized millions. The destruction of ISIS freed countless people from brutal oppression and sent a message that the U.S. would not tolerate global terror. This victory marked a turning point in the fight against extremist violence. Abraham Accords, brokered by Trump, were the most significant Middle East peace breakthrough in a generation. By normalizing relations between Israel and several Arab nations, these agreements shifted the regional balance away from extremism and toward cooperation. The accords demonstrated that diplomacy and negotiation could achieve what decades of conflict could not, offering hope for a more peaceful future in the region. Trump was the first president in decades to treat the Chinese Communist Party as a systemic global threat rather than just a trade partner. His administration's tough stance on intellectual property theft and expansionism fundamentally changed how the West views China. This shift in perspective has influenced global policy and raised awareness of the challenges posed by authoritarian regimes. Trump became the first sitting president to cross into North Korea, attempting to de-escalate a nuclear standoff that had threatened the world for decades. Through direct personal diplomacy, he sought to reduce tensions and open a path to peace. While the long-term results remain debated, this unprecedented move demonstrated a willingness to try new approaches to old problems. In comparing presidents by their actions to protect the helpless, Trump's defeat of ISIS stands alongside Eisenhower's liberation of Europe, Lincoln's abolition of slavery, Reagan's fight against communism, and Bush's coalition in the Gulf War. Each of these leaders took decisive action to confront evil and defend the vulnerable, leaving a legacy of courage and compassion. Throughout his presidency, Trump was credited with securing the release of dozens of Americans and foreigners held by hostile regimes and terror groups. These humanitarian efforts included high-profile cases in North Korea, Iran, and Venezuela. By prioritizing the safe return of hostages, Trump demonstrated a commitment to protecting citizens and upholding human rights on the global stage. Trump's administration intensified efforts against transnational criminal organizations, focusing on human trafficking and child exploitation. By targeting these networks, the administration aimed to protect the most vulnerable and disrupt the operations of those who profit from suffering. This focus on global trafficking highlighted the importance of international cooperation in the fight against organized crime. A rapidly changing technological landscape, Trump implemented federal policies to ensure that artificial intelligence development remains free from ideological bias. Supporters argue that unbiased technology is essential for the future of global truth and security. This initiative reflects a broader commitment to safeguarding the integrity of information and protecting democratic values in the digital age. For many, Trump's refusal to engage in forever wars while still confronting global threats represents a new definition of presidential greatness. His direct diplomacy with North Korea and aggressive economic stance on China are seen as innovative approaches to making the world safer. This shift away from traditional military intervention has sparked debate about the best path to lasting peace and security. 2025, Trump shifted the war on drugs from a law enforcement framework to a direct military offensive. He became the first president to formally declare a non-international armed conflict with drug cartels, treating them as unlawful combatants. This radical departure from past policies marked a new era in the fight against narcoterrorism, with the U.S. military taking a leading role. Operation Southern Spear, unveiled in November 2025, marked the beginning of a counter-narcoterrorism campaign using Navy warships and autonomous systems to target maritime drug trafficking. Since September 2025, the U.S. military has executed dozens of airstrikes on cartel vessels, resulting in significant disruption of trafficking networks. This operation represents a bold and unprecedented approach to combating the flow of deadly drugs into the United States. Under Trump's directive, the U.S. military conducted at least 42 known airstrikes on cartel boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, resulting in over 145 deaths of alleged narcoterrorists. This use of lethal kinetic force marked a dramatic escalation in the fight against drug cartels, signaling a willingness to use military power to protect American lives and disrupt criminal enterprises. January 20, 2025, Trump signed an executive order designating major international cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. This reclassification allowed the U.S. to treat drug trafficking as a national security threat, expanding the scope of military and legal action. By February 2025, 8 major cartels were officially designated, marking a turning point in America's approach to organized crime. October 2025, Trump formally notified Congress that the U.S. was engaged in an armed conflict with drug cartels. This legal shift allowed the military to target cartel members even when they did not pose an immediate threat, a power typically reserved for wartime. The declaration marked a new chapter in America's fight against narcoterrorism, with far-reaching implications for law and policy. U.S. expanded its operations to include strikes on land targets within Venezuela and the capture of foreign leaders. In January 2026, U.S. forces captured Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro, who now faces narcoterrorism charges. This bold action demonstrated a willingness to pursue justice beyond borders and hold powerful figures accountable for their role in the drug trade. Under Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the Trump administration deployed a hybrid fleet of robotics and autonomous systems to monitor and disrupt trafficking networks. This technological warfare represents a new frontier in the fight against organized crime, leveraging innovation to outpace and outmaneuver criminal organizations. The use of advanced technology has increased the effectiveness and reach of U.S. operations. Trump administration recently classified fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, reflecting the deadly impact of synthetic opioids on American communities. By treating fentanyl as a national security threat, the administration has prioritized aggressive action to disrupt its production and distribution. This approach underscores the seriousness of the opioid crisis and the need for bold solutions. Previous presidents approached the war on drugs primarily through law enforcement and international aid. Nixon created the DEA, Reagan increased interdiction budgets, and Clinton funded foreign militaries. While these efforts had some success, they rarely involved direct offensive warfare. Trump's approach stands out for its use of military force and willingness to treat cartels as enemy combatants. In an escalation titled Operation Absolute Resolve, U.S. forces conducted a raid in Caracas on January 3, 2026, capturing Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro and his wife to face narcoterrorism charges. This operation demonstrated the administration's commitment to holding powerful figures accountable and disrupting the leadership of international criminal organizations. Supporters of Trump's 2025-2026 war on cartels argue that his direct military approach distinguishes him from all predecessors. Shifting from a law enforcement model to a militarized offensive, he has targeted evildoers through unprecedented executive and military actions. These bold measures are seen as necessary to eliminate the national security threat posed by cartels trafficking deadly poisons to U.S. shores. Trump's aggressive strategy is viewed by many as the first time a president has prioritized the safety of the helpless by directly eliminating the source of deadly threats. By treating cartels as terrorists and using advanced technology, the administration has set a new standard for presidential action in the face of global crime. This approach has sparked debate about the balance between security and civil liberties, but its impact is undeniable. From Washington to Trump, The story of America's presidents is one of evolving leadership and global impact. Each leader faced unique challenges and left a distinct mark on history. Whether through war, peace, diplomacy, or innovation, these presidents shaped the world in ways that continue to resonate. As we reflect on their legacies, we are reminded that true greatness is measured not just by words, but by actions that change lives and safeguard the future.